It's the Terry Sullivan Show. Today's guest, Mayor of Lewisville, Texas, TJ Gilmore. And now, my best friend, Terry Sullivan.
He knows that's not true.
I know. I feel bad for lying.
It's on tape now. That's all you can do.
Thanks, T.
You bet.
You always do a great job over there, buddy. Yeah, I tell you what, those 2 years of guitar have paid off.
If it was only 2 years, I need to pick up guitar because that's impressive.
I'd give just about anything to play like that. I can't play. I can play the radio.
I have zero musical talent, none.
Yeah.
I like to tell people that my kids got it all from me because my wife is still musically talented and I'm not, but nobody seems to get that joke.
Mayor, it's good to have you here. This is your second time on my show.
That's what I'm hearing.
And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking your time out. I know you're busy, and we're going to talk about all that busyness in just a minute, but your kids are gone.
They are. They're off in college.
So are you and Tanya getting along all right?
Yeah, I'm not in the house at all, so it makes it perfect. No, we're getting along. We're getting along just fine. My wife is pretty awesome. She's a saint, as you know. She's my better two-thirds, and yeah, we're doing pretty good. Yeah, it's a little different,
great.
but
she's great.
Yeah.
So for the people that are going to be empty nesters, what do you tell them? I mean, now you're an empty nester.
Yeah.
What do you tell them?
It's not like anything you've read in the books or any of that stuff. It's like, what are you having for dinner? Well, I don't know. What do you want to have for dinner? That's like 90% of our time is figuring out what we're having for dinner. And of course, I'm out 3-4 nights a week, so it's like dinner for
it's a great
one
marriage.
night. Yeah, it works great. It works great. So no, it's fun. I mean, you got to carve out time.
Yeah.
You got to put a focus on it, right? And now you have more time, but you kind of like, I could go just do all my work or those. So I've been lucky, and one of the things I talked with my friends about was with this, getting elected as mayor. As I said, look, I'm horrible at managing a calendar. I need you guys to help me. And so we've got great friends that say, okay, we're going out, or okay, we're going to come over, and just create those opportunities to keep our relationship going.
What was it different? I mean, you got 3 kids.
No, the house is much quieter. Much quieter. Nobody there to take the dogs out. None of that stuff.
Yeah, dishes and all that.
Yeah.
Have you already got plans for their bedrooms so that they can't move back in? Or?
I'm thinking about subletting. I'm just at this point no. Tanya wants to keep the house, so we've talked about maybe moving or somewhere into Old Town or something like that, and Tanya just. And we do. We love our house. It's over on up north of the fire and police station over on the other side of town, and just great neighborhood, plenty of size, and the kids come back a little bit. That's fine. I can get ornery enough to kick them out. It's not a problem.
Does she cry every time they leave?
No, no. That's more me than her. That's more me than her.
Mary, let's talk about Old Town Revitalization.
Okay.
We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
Sure.
The last time that you were on the show, this is your second time on the show, these apartment complexes, I mean, I think they had fresh dirt down here at Mill and Main.
Yeah, they'd started moving dirt around a little bit.
But none over here. They
No.
still had the buildings up over here. I tell you, it's amazing to me how much has changed in a short period of time.
Yeah, and so it's a very short period of time. Well, and it looks like a short period of time, right? But we've been talking about these projects for 4, 5, 6 years for the one up here on Main and Mill. The one behind you is about a 2-year project, I think, that we've talked about up to this point.
Yep.
We've got another toll house development that's getting built. I keep thinking it's Cookies, but it's not. Toll Brothers is the company. But we're supposed to go turn dirt for them here in the next couple of days.
And where's that?
That's going to be up over closer to the rail station. so over by Aura and in that space up there. So I mean, the key here is putting more bodies down here so our businesses can be more successful, and so there's more. They're called third spaces, places where people come and they hang out and they want to have that experience. Sullivan Barbecue, a third space, right? You got regulars come here, and it's just part of their routine.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's a walk-around community, and I think the city's doing an incredible job getting it to that point.
It's taken a lot of work. You probably remember driving down here in the 2000s, and many of the buildings on Main Street. People don't seem to remember this, but many of the buildings on Main Street, had plywood windows. And they were buttoned up and looked pretty run down. And
people were talking about Mayor. People were talking about that Old Town was dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was really.
And it was. And then the city fathers at that time made the commitment to invest in City Hall.
Yep.
And what you're doing when you do these things is you're signaling to developers that you want this place to be something different. If you didn't touch it, you just let it decay into the ground, and it becomes blighted. It becomes not a good thing for anybody. So with all the development that the city has done in infrastructure, the roads, the sidewalks, the walkable spaces, that creates a foundation where developers can then come in and say, hey, people would want to live here.
Yeah. In 3 years, this place will look like it's never looked before. In 3 years, I mean, we've got right next door to me here to Sullivan Barbecue, we've got 213 apartment units going in there. And it's it looks like something that belongs in downtown Dallas. It's a beautiful complex by photo. Yeah. And then, Mayor, down here, clear this up for me, because people ask me this all the time, and I'm really not sure. But at the corner of Mill and Main, across from the old Huff Hines building, which is now an event center, explain that complex. What is it?
So it's what's called a wraparound. And so when you build complexes, there's lots of different ways to build them. But one of the challenges is, of course, parking. And so the highest, densest, most expensive way to build one is what's called a wraparound, where you place the parking garage in the center, and then you wrap the living units around it.
All right.
So it kind of hides the parking.
Yeah.
So what you'll see here is you'll see an entrance into the parking garage here on Main Street. On Mill Street. And I've been told that about 70 of those spots are actually going to be public. So it's actually going to improve parking down here, which is great. But it'll have a really nice finish and look that is friendly to the street, and kind of tucks those cars away, so people use them, but they don't need to see them.
Yeah. So how many apartments will be in that complex?
I think that one's 300, 350. But remember, the complex is both sides of the street, right?
Oh, and okay.
Yeah.
I see. I wasn't sure of that. I wasn't sure what was going on the other side.
Yep. Both sides of the street.
The other side looks like, is it a garage as well?
I think there's under parking, but I don't know if that's a full garage. I haven't looked at the plans for probably 18 months. So, but yeah, there'll be some parking space there, and then we'll clean up that alley in the back there, much like we did on the north side. If you ever go up to the Wayne Ferguson Plaza, the alley there is all restructured and set up a lot more conveniently. So we'll do the same thing on the south side.
It's looking great. Everybody's excited about it, especially those of us who have businesses down here are so excited about getting bodies, getting people, and I really believe that concept of a walk-around community, I think it's going to be really great down here.
Well, if you're going to develop in today's world, I really think cities have to focus on creating these hubs, if you will, these community hubs. So if you're going to build something, it needs to have places for people to live, places, third spaces where people can hang out, whether that's a coffee shop or your barbecue joint, or you pick the place. Green space, someplace where they can walk their dog, a place where they can office, whether that's a co-working space or an office building not too far away. So these hubs where people can do a big chunk of their life without having to get into a car.
Right.
And I think Old Town has always had some of that. I just think we're just strengthening it. And you're going to see that kind of concept in other parts of Lewisville. Up in the Northern Gateway as we're working with some developers on that land there on 407 and 35 to create more of that kind of live, work, play. The mall, Music City Mall, this past week was the current owner was bought out by a California and Korean investment group. So we're looking forward to seeing what they can do to rework that.
What do they want to do?
Well, and that's the question. I'm supposed to meet with them next week, and we're going to have that conversation. The city actually has a plan that we've designed that we could really get behind. And it's, again, townhomes, maybe some apartment space, retail, entertainment. So I envision something more like a grandscape type of concept, but denser, more compact. We've got the rail station just on the other side, so we can work to have transit connections in there. It's a really cool vision plan that we've put out there. But again, the city can help with the infrastructure. The city can help with some of the property tax, but we don't write checks. We don't have what's called an economic development where we can just write checks, EDC. And I don't want that. If it's a business and it makes sense, then I want a good partnership. But at the end of the day, it needs to bring more to Lewisville than it takes. And so that's what we're targeting. I think this group will be a good one. I'm excited by what they've done in the past. I haven't done anything quite of this scale, but I think they're bringing a vision.
So how do you appeal? We've got developers wanting to come in here now. And what do you do to appeal to the developers that you want in Lewisville?
Sure. Developers, time is money. Right? So the longer a process takes for them, the more it costs them. So they want to know that a city is easy to work with. They want to know that the city has an intent to develop the area, that they want it. Too often developers might go to a town or a city and say, we want to do this, and the reality is the city or the neighborhoods around it say, we don't.
Right.
And then there is this, we got to have more public meetings. We got to have more of this. We got to have more of that, and it's just time, right? The other thing that I think developers, depends on what kind of development they want to do. Retailers, of course, are looking at spending patterns and average incomes and those types of things. And Lewisville does pretty good on that, so it gives us an opportunity there. But it's you'd be amazed at how much data these guys pull from your cell phone. When you walk into a Walmart, they know. And they know how much you spent when you walked into that Walmart.
My goodness.
And they can tell you which corner on an intersection makes them the most money at what time of day.
No kidding.
So
now, how did they get that information?
That information comes from your cell phone. If you use Google Maps or one of those applications, it shares your data.
Is that good or bad?
It's good for them.
Yeah.
I'm in IT. That's what my company does. We support companies and do IT service. Data is useful. We could do better in this country at protecting my anonymity and yet still be able to use the data for things.
Yeah.
So, it's good, but again, as long as it's being used for good.
Yeah. Yeah. Mayor, we talk about Old Town because that's where my business is. And,
Yes, sir.
And sometimes you don't remember how big Lewisville is.
Right.
That it's Old Town is just a part of it.
Just over 43 square miles.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of building going on here.
Yes, sir.
A lot of those people, especially within a mile or 2 mile radius of the barbecue house, a lot of those people come in here for lunch, and with no exceptions, they all talk about how they enjoy working with City Hall, with our city managers.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, that's what you want to hear.
It's
right?
It's absolutely what you want to hear, and if you hear something different, then you got to work on it.
Yeah.
It's just like your business, right? People come in here and they give you a 3-star, or I don't think you've gotten anything less than a 5. But if just imagine,
I can't imagine
if they were, you'd want to talk to them. Right?
I'd send them to Dickey's.
Yeah. Obviously, this is not the place for you. I got it. Yeah.
You're not up to my standards. Maybe next time. I'll let you know if you can come back. Let's talk about this. Is interesting to me. Let's talk about the Castle Hills annexation.
Sure.
Now, annexation means what?
So annexation means that entity now becomes serviced completely by a municipality, in this case, the city of Lewisville.
Now, what were they before?
They were what's called a water district. So they were a political entity that basically taxed those properties and used that tax dollar to build public infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, all of that stuff. But that entity, water district, and Texas, this is how Texas develops. It is a tool used by developers to allow them access to sales tax or property tax dollars, sorry, to do the development, to help leverage their capital. How it became Lewisville's is because we gave them access to the capital markets, the bond markets, to be able to do that development. In exchange, we would annex or take it over when the tax rate didn't impact the tax rate for our citizens here, right? Because I don't want to have them get a lower tax rate and pay everybody over here pay for those amenities, and vice versa. They don't want to have a lower tax rate and then come back. So you have to find that sweet spot where the tax rates even out.
So, I mean, they can't just say, this is what we're going to do, let's do it. I mean, it takes time to do that, doesn't it?
26 years for Castle Hills, between when the original agreement was made to the annexation. The developer, of course, in that agreement is that we're going to build to the city's standards, not just to some random standard, which means when we take that over, those streets are built to our standards. The sewer and water lines are built to our standards, which means, quite frankly, Lewisville does live to a pretty high standard as far as our development code is concerned.
So when that happens, all of a sudden, our health departments, our fire department,
Police, fire, parks.
So all of a sudden, man, those guys, they have a lot more responsibility.
Sure. And so the way that worked before is that, of course, that entity, the water district, can contract with anybody for security, for police, for fire. They could go to the county. They don't have all the amenities, right? They don't have an animal shelter. They don't have animal control for that reason. Lots of other ancillary things that you don't think of, but that a city provides. Over the years, they contracted with the city of Lewisville for police and fire service.
Got it.
So that helped, and that kind of helped create better linkages too between the community over there and Lewisville, helped them understand that they were part of Lewisville. And so that over time, now, all of those folks come on. So we, like the biggest one is Public Works. The folks that fill the potholes, they fix the water lines, that kind of stuff. That team, we hired most of them because, again, like you said, we've got a new almost 18,000 residents, and we got to provide those services. Well, the easiest way to grow the staff to be able to handle that is to hire the water district staff to come on board. We did a lot of that, roughly 30 people.
I got it. So does their leadership forfeit under Lewisville leadership?
So the water districts, had elected officials. There were 7 of them, I think, and they had elect residents and appointees from the developer as well. That whole political structure is wiped away. Okay. And so in anticipation of that, we actually put a charter election, and Lewisville residents approved that we would increase the size of our city council by 1 seat. Because, again, representation is important. Sure. We want to make sure that we have voices everywhere. The other piece that we went to is what's called a residential district. And that means that the city was divided into 6 areas. And if you want to run for a particular council seat, you have to live in one of those areas. So if you lived in place 1, then you can run for place 1. But if you wanted to run for place 2, you can't unless you live there. But, and here's the cool thing about it, you have to live in an area to run, but you're voted by the entire city. And I think what that does, too often I see city councils where I'm going to bring $1 to my part of the city. Well, I'm going to bring $1 to my part of the city. So these 2 parts of the city, of a whole, fight each other. They're fighting each other for resources. And this might be the part of the city that's brand new, and this part of the city is, running a little older and needs more help.
Right.
But I need $1 and I need $1, so what do? They don't compromise, they just raise a tax rate. With our structure, you have to understand how your neighborhood fits as a part of the whole. And I think it creates more of a give and take. I think it keeps property taxes low because, you know, you have to work. You have to work collaboratively.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about the Lake Park
Sure.
project. Where do you see that? Where's that going?
You know, that one only happens, what's key to understand, that's Corps of Engineers property. That's federal property. So what the feds say is, well, we want people to recreate on these lakes. We want them to be used, not just be water storage. But we can't do that. So you as a city, if you want to build an amenity, you want to build park space, all of that stuff, as long as it meets our guidelines, you all can be the master leaseholder. And those leases are 25 years in length.
Oh.
So guess what? The lease is coming up here in 2025.
Okay.
When we started looking at that, we said, you know what, let's go and see what developers might think of this space. And we got back 4 or 5 really cool plans of re-engineering the park to make it more usable, give it more amenities, you know, just upscale it.
Yeah.
While still keeping the things that we understand and use it for. The Corps has very specific rules. If you have an RV park in there or a campground, you have to keep the campground. You have to keep it. It has to be somewhere on the lake. So I could move it, but it would have to go to East Hill Park, which is another park that we have on the lake. I don't see any of those pieces moving, quite frankly. None of the plans have any of those pieces moving. They're all going to be there. We're just going to re-engineer it and relay the park out so it's a little better use of the space.
I got it.
So exciting. Nice to see that we have some partners that think that they can redevelop it and really kind of bring some more amenities to the park. And I think that's going to really help. Because that was our centerpiece for many, many years, right? And I think bringing some of these, a few more amenities, maybe a little more restaurants, you know, some glamping is kind of a thing where people go out and do the little cabins. I think having that and making it more useful to more people is what Lake Park's about. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Is Old Town, I lost my sheet.
Yeah, lost your sheet. Well, there you go. We're done.
Thank you. Is Old Town any closer to getting a grocery store?
I think you've got to give that another 2 years for all the housing to get done.
Okay.
Well, and when I say get done,
Population.
for this batch of housing to get done,
Got to have population.
you got to have you got to. I mean, listen. My name's TJ. If I don't call Trader Joe's, that's wrong on me, right? Trader Joe's, again, the amount of data that they have on where they put their stores, same thing. I think Old Town's short-term solution is more of a bodega or small specialty market.
Yeah.
A larger grocery store, I think, is gonna wait until it sees more population down here, and that's at least 2 years out before the head count gets there.
What is on your plate right now that's just an ongoing issue for you?
Ongoing issue.
I mean, other than Claire Powell.
Yeah, well, you know, she's amazing. Our city manager is absolutely amazing.
She is amazing.
I think part of being mayor is helping to manage change and expectations, because we all know change is inevitable. It's managing it and helping people get through it.
Yeah.
Because for some folks it's painful, and for other folks they're looking forward to it. But I think the goal of mayor is just helping work people through change. I will say that probably the biggest challenge on the 4 walls of City Hall is employment.
Yes.
And getting bodies out there. We've had to do a lot more contract work, where we like to do it in house because we can do it cheaper usually, and to a higher standard.
And everybody's struggling with that.
And that's very hard. Yeah. It's,
What's the answer to that, Mayor?
well, we're doing a compensation study just to make sure that we're paying our people what is fair and equitable and what the rest of the market looks like. I hate to say this, but sometimes what happens is the historical trend has been that when the market is really doing well, people move to the private sector. And then when the economy kind of contracts or slows down, they start looking at the safety and security that comes from, a public sector job. I think between the compensation study and maybe a little bit of a slowdown that they're projecting next year, I don't think that's going to hurt Texas. I think we're just going to, instead of doing this, we're just going to kind of level a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that may help with the count. those are the things we have to fight, because residents expect a certain level of service and support. And you know, I'll be direct. We've had a challenge fulfilling some of that here over the last few months.
Sure.
You know, and Claire's doing a yeoman's job of figuring out how to do that. One great thing about Lewisville is that we are really centrally located, so that makes it easy for people who are looking for a job to, depending on where they live, to get to us.
We're very diversified.
Very diversified, and we got a great culture.
Yeah.
Our city is known across the state of Texas for having just a really service-oriented but employee-focused culture.
Yeah, yeah. So you moved here in 2001.
Yes, sir.
Did you move here from Arizona?
No, sir. I took a 5-year sabbatical. I married my college sweetheart, and she was from Massachusetts. So we lived
Tanya
up.
know about that?
Yeah, I know, right? So we moved up to Massachusetts. Job market was better at the time. I got a job working for Dale Carnegie Training, you know, public speaking and whatnot. And then, you know, the labor market and everything. She had a bunch of family that moved down here, so we ended up, you know, moving to Lewisville. Yeah, and we had our first child. Bridget was, you know, 6 weeks old when we moved here.
Are we out of the COVID deal?
You know, I think you still have folks that need to pay attention because they've got a family member or somebody that's compromised from an immune system standpoint. But I think most of us are at a point where we're back to normal life. I mean, I look at my calendar and it's back to normal life.
But I mean, we didn't know if we would see a normal.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still out there. There's still folks that are greatly impacted by it. And I think we just have to show some grace to folks if they're doing something a little bit different because of COVID now.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just show some grace because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they've got as far as an issue.
Mayor, what is the deal with Star Trek?
My mom showed me Star Trek when I was a little kid, and it's stuck with me all my life. I'm a huge fan. I love poking the bear, my Star Wars fans. I'm like, you know, love to tell them that if they want space wizards, that's fine. But if they want real science fiction, then Star Trek's the way to go.
You use social media the way it's supposed to be used. You use it for fun and as I do.
It's about building community, right? I don't want to tear people down. That's not me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, social media is kind of built to tear things down.
Yeah.
It's designed that way. It gets you going, right? You get that hit because I got to be snarky to somebody.
Yeah.
So no, I'm much more want to use it to have fun, to catch up with friends. You know, people that I hadn't seen in 20 years. They have a new grandbaby or whatever. I get to see that. That's what I love about social media.
Yeah. Mayor, you're great for our city.
Well, appreciate that, Terry.
I know you hear that all the time, but I want to say it on air that you are great for our city. And we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you building community down here. That's what we all have to do.
Yes, sir. Terry, take us out, buddy.